Hello and welcome to reInvent 2020. My name is Matheus Arraes and I am a PSA, a Partner Solution Architect here in AWS. Today's session we're going to discuss build governance at scale with AWS Control Tower. This is our agenda for today. So we're going to have a discussion about governance and agility, overview for AWS Control Tower, some concepts about landing zone and multi-account strategy, of course about either lifecycle events and customization, and how to start a journey with AWS Control Tower. Shall we begin? Let's go. So, balance of the needs of the builders and the central cloud IT. So, enterprise had made to traditional compromise between the needs of the builders and the cloud IT department team. So builders love the speed and the agility that AWS provides for them, while the central cloud teams wants to govern with central controls. So enterprises do not like to be forced to choose between business agility and governance control. So that's one of the reasons that AWS offers a set of management and governance tools to help our customers improve business agility and maintain governance control. When IT team deploy management and governance service on AWS, they can support innovation, unclog provision bottlenecks, improve their security posture, enhance operation efficiency, and overall reduce cost. One of all these services is AWS Control Tower. So what is AWS Control Tower and why should I use AWS Control Tower? So AWS Control Tower is a service launched in the June 2019 that offers an easy way to organizations set up governance their new or existing AWS environment at scale. AWS Control Tower helps you to automate the process for setting up a multi-account environment on AWS that is secure, well-architected, and ready to use. So AWS Control Tower is a concept called AWS landing zone that it's creating following the best practice established through AWS experience working with thousands of enterprises as they move to the cloud. With AWS Control Tower, you can have three aspects: enable, provision, and operate. You can do those three things in improving your business agility aligned with governance at scale. So let's take a deeper on these three major benefits, starting with enable. So AWS Control Tower is going to enable setting up. The first thing is going to set it up for you. It's AWS landing zone. Second, centralize your identity access management for have a centralized control of who have access to each resource. Third is going to establish guardrails, and guardrails is very important because have you security, compliance, and operation rules that are aligned with your internal rules. Third, fourth is going to automate compliance account provision to have the best way to give your builders the power for provisioning accounts. And of course, management continues over time through an AWS dashboard. So let's go dive deeper in each of these points. First of all, setting up AWS landing zone. So landing zone, like I said, is a concept that is a pre-configured, secure, scalable multi-account AWS environment following the best practice. So on this architecture here on the left side, you can see what AWS Control Tower provides to our customers as they starting build their multi-account environment. As you can see, AWS Control Tower orchestrates with some servers to create your multi-account environment on AWS. First service that AWS Control Tower uses is AWS organizations. And AWS Control Tower is going to create this organization for you, or unless it's already established, you can use your own AWS organizations. This service will help to manage your accounts. And under the organizations, you're going to have organization units. You have two here. The core OU with two accounts. In these two accounts, the first account is called Log Archive, as you can see, with account baseline and an Amazon S3 bucket to centralize your logs, provide for AWS CloudTrail and AWS Config. The second account is going to be the audit accounts. It's going to have also the account baseline aligned with across hosts provide for EAM and security notifications for your AWS config aggregator. The second OU under the AWS organization is going to be custom OU, and this is for your accounts that you're going to provision later on. So also, AWS Control Tower, you're going to use AWS Single Sign-On or SSO for providing identity and access management for a built-in directory, or you can integrate you for your existing identity provider. Also, AWS Control Tower, you're going to use AWS Service Catalog for accounting factory for provision new accounts, following the best practice that AWS Control Tower use the same concept of AWS landing zone. So before I continue, let's take a brief look about how the multi-account strategy on AWS should be. So based on the customer's asks, we have built a framework that how should be the layout for your AWS configuration and how to build a foundation to management multi-account environments. So as you can see on the slides, it's an ideal end of state for multi-account configurations where AWS should be involved to over a fulfillment of time. So you might not be at this framework today, and that's okay. But you should evolve to become similar like this as you grow on AWS. So we have here in my left side a foundation OUs. And this OU I have separated in two. The first one is called Core OU. It have the same align strategy with AWS Control Tower. So should be the log archives, the security accounts under, and a second OU called infrastructure. So infrastructure, you can have shared service accounts or network accounts for centralize your connection between AWS and your on-premises environment. Okay? Of course, you have additional use to align with the needs that your builders and your workloads has, and that's totally fine, and you can just see on this framework that is totally possible. So let's go back and see about guardrails in AWS Control Tower. So guardrails is a very important topic because when we discuss governance at scale, Control Tower established governance guardrails across all your accounts to help to uniformly manage policies and maintain visibility across your collections of accounts. One of the reasons that we discuss about AWS Control Tower having a custom OU under your organization, it's because every guardrails needs to be enabled at the OU level. So as you can see on the slide, we have two behaviors in terms of guardrails. We have the first one called preventing guardrails, and that ensures that your accounts maintains compliance by explicitly denying permission to disable or make any change to critical policy, configuration settings, or resource. This is implemented by using service control policies that should be found in your AWS organizations. Second behavior is detected, and detects non-compliance resource within your accounts, such as policy violations, and you're gonna start alerts through the dashboard and notifications by email. This is implemented using AWS config rules aligned with AWS Lambda functions. So let's go deeper about guardrails. That is important to talk about governance at scale. So as you can see, we have three types of classification in terms of guardrails. You have the mandatory guardrails, and it's always being enforced. It's enabled by default because it's following the best practice that AWS offering for our customers. You have the second option, second classification called strong recommend. It's designed to enforce some common best practice for a well-architected multi-account environment. And the third option is called elective. So enables you to lock down or trap attempts at performance and common restrict actions in AWS environments. These two options are not enabled by default. You can disable, and you can align with your internal tools in order to get this policy working in all your account across environment. I have status here too. So each guardrails means they're going to have a compliance status. So for prevent guardrails, I have always enforced or not enabled. And for the detected guardrails, I have also the same three classification, but three different status. I have clear, that means that this non-compliance is already clear. In violation, that means that a specific resource is in violation against some rule, or not enabled. It means that guardrail are not enabled, and you can choose to enable always in all U level like we discussed. So let's see some example about guardrails. So I have here some example of guardrails. You can have a different categories like EIM security, data security, network security, and so on. So let's take for one example here, like network security. So this means that if I enable this specific guardrail, in this example, it's disallow internet connection via RDP protocol. It means that when I enable these guardrails, all my security groups in that specific accounts, because always in all U level, reminding that, is gonna have this security group always be aligned with 0.0.0/0 in the port 3389. Is gonna have a non-compliance resource because this port is open to entire world, and it is violating this specific rule. So how this should work in terms of mitigate and detection. So I have here a flow that demonstrates how this is going to be detected and how to mitigate this. So I have two actors. The first one is AWS Control Tower administrator. So this administrator can create some custom IU and create some end users. That's going to be my second actor. So my end users is going to create an account, and you will see this process later on under this child OU that the administrator already created for us. So the third option is going to be the administration creates and enable a guardrail and that OU level. And he or she is going to receive alerts about the guardrails in violation because of non-compliance resource that my end user created. So it's the responsibility of my end user is going to be to mitigate this guardrail violation in order to resolve a non-compliance alert. And the end users also can analyze the configuration itself for a compliance history as well. Okay, So far, we see about enable, and let's discuss about the second point, that's going to be provision. So about provision in AWS Control Tower. AWS Control Tower has a nice feature called Account Factory. And Account Factory provide new ways to create new accounts in your organizations. So as a configurable account template, it helps to standardize the provision of new accounts with a pre-approved account settings. These new accounts is going to be released with account baseline following the best practice, and the guardrails that you configure, as well the option to configure a pre-approved networking configurations and region selections. So this is all powered by AWS Service Catalog. So that's made possible to enable the self-servers for your builders to setting up a provision of the new accounts. It's important to remember that even though the AWS organization has a similar filter to create new accounts, it's important for an account to be managed by AWS Control Tower needs to be created by account factor inside Control Tower. So let's see about Service Catalog in more detail. So Service Catalog is another management and governance service that provides a single location for you to centralize management catalogs with a pre-approved resource. So AWS Service Catalogs has portfolios, and portfolios is a collection of products to easy management. Products itself are individual AWS resource, and you can create customized portfolio and selectively grant access to your end user for provision. So this means that you as administrator can grant access to products that users can launch without needing to give users direct access to underlying AWS service that provide those resources. So this means that you can create best practice templates using AWS CloudFormation for Amazon EC2, for Amazon EMR, Amazon RDS, using AWS Service Catalog to provide for your end users through AWS organizations and through AWS Control Tower environments. So that's easily shared, and you can provide self-provision with a governance environment and help to you to get a controlled budget, because you know what you have in that template, and you know you can establish budgets on those templates as well. So it helps with to create a governance, scalable, and secure environment for your builder, and your builder can self-provision without the need to get access to, but you know as an administrator that you can release for them. So this is very important when you talk about benefits of governance at scale, because sometimes organization needs to adopt new approach for development tools on the cloud. And if you delay this new approach, this new approach to develop on the cloud, it's going to delay migrations, it's going to have a weakness in terms of security posture, it's going to cost more money, and it's going to lose the agility that your building seek aligning with your governed IT cloud. So the major benefits to have a governed environment with AWS Control Tower is that you can get those 2 points that we discussed in the beginning. You have one hand with security, with creation, compliance needs, and standardization. And on the other hand, you have your builders needs with speed, time to market, agility, for you can self-provision a way for your builders. Okay, so the last point is about operating. Remember, enable, provision, and last one, operate. So operation with agility and control with AWS. First of all the customers want to monitor and get visibility into their resource, and AWS Control Tower can provide for them. Second, they want to make that it's auditable. Everything from those resources are configured to which users are accessing them and what policies are being enforced. You can have on AWS with AWS Control Tower. Third, they want to take operation actions on those resources to manage them, to at scale, to logically group them in automation operation tasks safely and secure at scale. And of course, they want to continuously have a visualization for your multi-account environment. So AWS Management and Governance Service has each point mentions a service for it can help to achieve your goals using AWS Control Tower in your multi-account environment. So for monitor, I have Amazon Cloud Watch. For user activity and resource configuration, I have AWS Guardrail and Config. For management resource and take operation actions, I have AWS System Manager. And for optimize reduce cost and improving security posture, I have AWS Trust Advisor, Cost and Use Report, Cost Explorer, and Budgets. Okay, but what if I need to customize an account created by my users through AWS Control Tower? What should I use? Because I need to align with my internal tools in my internal regulations. So another important topic with AWS Control Tower are lifecycle events. So lifecycle events, the main purpose is to mark a completion of certain AWS Control Tower actions that change the state of resource. So today we support any events such as create or management IOU, accounts, or even a guardrail. So each lifecycle event is delivered to Amazon Event Bridge and Amazon Cloud Watch events. For each lifecycle event, the event log shows whether it is originating AWS Control Tower actions completely successfully or failing, and AWS Cloud Trail is going to be automatically records each lifecycle event as a non-API AWS Service events. So let's see the example to make this clear. So I have here one of those 8 events, creating management accounts. And as admin, I can launch a new account through AWS Service Catalog. We discussed about that on an account factory. After successful creation of new accounts, our event will be delivered to Amazon Cloud Watch event, and I can create a rule to grab these events and to trigger a Lambda function, or even a CloudFormation stacks with stack sets, and this can create customizations in my new brandly accounts like YAM roles, VPC infrastructure, Amazon Guard Duty, or AWS Security Hub. So these customizations can help you a lot to set internal tools around security, threat detections, network infrastructure, and can help you to create a multi-account environment governed with the same tools and same structure, especially when you already have a consolidated baseline in your organizations. Okay, so we pass all these 3 benefits on AWS Control Tower, but maybe a question's gonna raise up. What if I need to get started and then I have some internal tools that I want to integrate with AWS Control Tower, different on these lifecycle events? So to get started a journey with AWS Control Tower, we have some partners provide through AWS Marketplace a solution for AWS Control Tower to deploy and integration into your AWS accounts provided by AWS Control Tower. So this will help you to enable security and insight in your accounts right from the start. The solutions leverage core Control Tower features such as a lifecycle events or a centralization log bucket, and include a step-by-step guide with a CloudFormation template that you can use to automating an integration with those solutions. So it's a great start to look at out one of those solutions in AWS Marketplace. So let's wrap up the key features that AWS Control Tower has. So the AWS Control Tower has an automating landing zone. So they follow the best practice and blueprints. Also, guardrails, very important features to governance and security at scale in your accounts. Account Factory, to give ability to your builders to create new accounts in a security and management environment. Also, a dashboard to visualize a non-compliant resource and manage your accounts through those dashboards. Built-in Identity and Access Manager powered by AWS SSO, and you can integrate it with your existing identity provider as well. A pre-configured log file and audit access to your accounts is centralized in log archive accounts, so you can plug in Amazon Athena, for example, to help with auditing or troubleshooting. And of course, monitor and notifications also built in with automatic update in your accounts. So how to get started? Here are some great material about AWS Control Tower, like for instance, enrolling existing accounts into AWS Control Tower. And you can find more documentation and blog posts on the QR codes, and also some demos on YouTube channel below. So I greatly thank you for watching this session and enjoy the event. Thank you very much.